Although they can be a chore to maintain, convertible tops can quickly become ingrained with unsightly organic dirt if they're not. So stay tuned to see how I recommend best deep cleaning and protecting them using the awkward manual jobby of this non-garaged 718 Spyder. So although this particular 2-year-old top wasn't ingrained with unsightly organic dirt, it does live outside and as far as I'm aware has never been treated to a dedicated clean and proof. So thought I'd do just that before the autumn weather arrives, and while it didn't go quite to plan, decided to share it anyways. It still serves to illustrate the general approach and kinds of products I'd recommend using. First things first then was a reduced pressure rinse to remove any loose bits of dirt and saturate the fibres, which allows any cleaner subsequently applied to then effectively penetrate its fibres. Now, if the top you're tending to is particularly dirty, you can gently brush it off or even vacuum it using a suitable attachment first. But because this one wasn't, kept Henry on standby for the latter stages of the clean instead. So once wet, I grabbed a fresh bottle of rag top cleaner that comes as part of the Finesse soft top kit and sprayed it over half of the Spyder's roof before thoroughly working it in every which way with the supplied brush, letting the bristles, not any excessive pressure, do the work. Now, I'd recommend attacking a top like this in sections as opposed to haphazardly, as it helps you to keep track of where you've been. And although I used the brush that came with the kit for the most part here, having a few different items to hand to tackle any intricate or fiddly areas also makes sense. Once the first half of the Spyder's top had been adequately tended to, I then repeated the process for the other side. And although the sun was now beating down on it, I'd already postponed the shoot twice due to wet weather, so had to crack on regardless if I was to finally get it filmed. But it was mid-September sun, not peak summer rays, so figured it shouldn't be too much of an issue. After being agitated, the top was then thoroughly rinsed off with the pressure washer to ensure it was free from any cleaning product residue, which is key when cleaning fabric tops, as any leftover soap could reduce the efficacy of any subsequently applied protectant. Now, because cleaning a convertible top creates overspray and runoff, it's almost always worth contact washing the car afterwards to prevent stubborn chemical streaks and water spots. So got to work giving the Miami Blue Spyder, which I've featured a fair few times before, a good pre-clean contact wash and dry to both ensure there was no rag top cleaner residue on the body and that it was as clean as the top itself, as it's no good having one without the other. I then unclipped and opened up the manual top to access its shuts and internals, as thoroughly cleaning the fabric yet neglecting the parts that house it isn't particularly good practice, so spent 10 minutes wiping them down with a damp general purpose towel or two to remove any light dust and dirt here. But if the car you're working on is especially manky, then it's worth treating them to a dedicated clean directly before or after the top with a soft brush, some shampoo or APC and a steady non-pressurised stream of water. While it isn't strictly necessary, once it's dry I always go on to either vacuum or tape the material off to remove any remaining loose bits from the cleaning process, as even if you use lint-free tools and towels there'll inevitably still be some, and while a fabric top protectant won't permanently seal them, and it still makes sense to ensure the top is as clean and contaminant free as possible, so proceeded to give everywhere a thorough vac off with Henry and his soft brush attachment. And it's at this point you need to remember not to let the judgmental looks of curtain twitchers and passers-by who don't strive for a lint-free life concern you. So while the soft top looked pretty damn good following the clean and vac, there's no point doing all that if you're not going to protect it, especially on a car that lives outside. So prepare to take it to the next level to make future maintenance cleaning a bit easier for its owner, as the poor sod now has two bright blue Porsches to keep on top of, using the Finesse ragtop protector, which is supposed to be lightly sprayed over the top, but I prefer a more direct approach to reduce or even eliminate the scourge of overspray that comes with spritzing. So decanted the product into something suitable before proceeding to brush it over the surface with a soft synthetic bristle paintbrush. Now, although I've done this without any trouble many times before, this particular combination of car and chemical didn't seem to want to play ball. Granted, it is intended to be applied in multiple light spray coats, not heavily slapped on with a brush, but I'd still expect a freshly cleaned, bone dry and unprotected top to quickly soak up anything worked over it, and while it was just about absorbing after a bit of persuasion, the extra brush work meant a few stray flicks and drips here and there, which ironically is exactly what I was trying to avoid by applying it in this manner to begin with. So I'm not exactly sure what the issue was. Perhaps the heavy direct application was causing the protectant to fight with itself on the surface. Maybe the fabric top had become contaminated with the overspray of a durable bodywork protectant previously applied that the dedicated clean hadn't fully removed. Or maybe it was the sun somehow affecting things, but whatever it was, I stubbornly fought with it, as I still generally advocate this application technique, especially when working outside. And to be fair, despite being a faff, the areas that had been successfully brushed over and left to naturally dry did look really nice, so use that as motivation to steadfastly plod on until it had all been adequately coated. Before finally throwing in the towel, I grabbed a couple of isopropyl alcohol primed ones to thoroughly wipe down the surrounding glass and bodywork to ensure there was no residual spots or runs of protectant that if left to bake in the sun could be difficult to remove. Again, something I wasn't really expecting to have to do at this point, but such is the life of a last minute car cleaning content creator. I then fired Henry up one last time for a final once over with the brush attachment to remove any airborne contaminants that had settled on the surface since its last vac, as if there's one thing in life that really cringes my hinges, it's lint, so did my best to suck up the vast majority of it before calling it a day. So despite things not quite going to plan, there's no denying after all that work and arguably unnecessary faffing, the fabric top still looked a damn sight better than it did at the start. Yes, parts of the process were perhaps a bit slapdash, but show me a cleaner looking outdoor kept top than this and I'll eat my hat. Now, looking back, I suspect some stubborn ceramic maintenance spray product previously used on the body had inadvertently contaminated the top just enough to impede the absorption of the protectant. But unfortunately, you can't really wipe fabric down with isopropyl alcohol or a prep spray like you can paintwork, so just have to clean it as best you can up front and subsequently roll with the punches if necessary. Big thanks to Roger Bailey, whose channel can be found linked below, for once again letting me use his cars as experimental subject matter, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully with something a little bit dirtier.